This is a Hot Pie Original.
He is Austin's mayor, been so since 2015. He is Steve Adler. Mayor, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Thanks for the invite on.
Thanks for doing it. It's been a crazy year. Is enough being done pre-shooting on East 6th Street, post-shooting on East 6th Street, that you could say enough is being done to keep East 6th Street safe? And if not, what more could be done?
I think we always have to be doing everything we can to make all parts of the city safer, certainly including East 6th Street. We're working to increase the lighting that exists there. We're working to increase EMS presence that's there. Remember, on the night or the early morning when that happened, our police force was there at force levels that were 20% higher than normal levels on a Friday night or Saturday morning. So there were a lot of police officers that were there, and one of the reasons why their pretty heroic first aid intervention probably saved lives. But there were a lot of police officers there. So it wasn't a question of force present at that point in time. But we have way too many illegal guns here in the city and around the country. We have guns in the hands of people that aren't supposed to have guns. Not a problem we're facing alone here in Austin. We're seeing it around the country. But I believe personally that yes, we ought to be limiting, doing everything we can to limit this trafficking in illegal guns, the proliferation of guns.
I don't even know this answer. Has tourism and traffic on East 6 changed since then? Was there any dent in tourism since then?
I've heard no indication of a change. That's pretty horrific situation, and it's still hard for me to think about Doug Cantor and his family. I have 3 kids myself, but Austin continues to be one of the safest big cities in the country, and the safest big city in Texas. I mean, we just are. But we're seeing increases in crime. And that means we have to be ever more vigilant, just like the increases that are happening around the country.
Other than saying something about guns, you think the uptick in that is for what reason?
I don't know the answer to that. I wish that I did. There's an uptick in guns. There's an uptick in violent crime. I don't know if it's pandemic related. Everybody around the country's been, kept at home. That's raised tensions in homes. I think people are frustrated. It could be just the nature of the political discourse that's happening. It just feels harder everywhere, and people feel angrier everywhere, and more everything just feels more divisive. I don't know what's causing it, but there are a lot of people nationally trying to figure that out.
You're a lawyer, so I've wondered this since 2 people were arrested and charged, and then the charges dropped. Is there legal exposure the city has after arresting a 17-year-old, high profile, arrested him in summer school in Killeen, and a juvenile as well, and then the charges are dropped? I don't know the answer. You might have to, something you would know as a lawyer. Is there exposure there?
Well, I wasn't in the loop in those decisions. That's been happening between our police chief and the.
Should you have been?
Sorry?
Should you have been in the loop in those decisions?
I don't think so. I think, that's their job, and they're hired to do that. And besides, I'm not a criminal lawyer, so I'm probably the last person they need, in that room. But I do note that the 2 people that were charged were not charged with murder. They were charged for other lesser offenses. And I haven't heard anybody say that they weren't guilty of the lesser offenses that they were charged and arrested for. The district attorney said that he was ordering the charges dropped because it wasn't in the best interest of the prosecution he was going after, which is the shooter. The shooter identified as Andre White, or allegedly that's the arrest. So I'm not sure what the thinking was of the district attorney, other than what he said. But I don't think there's any exposure, because I haven't heard that the people that were arrested were not guilty of what they were arrested for. It was the lesser charges.
Right. You've gone after, I know of at least twice. I won't go so far as to say you've talked trash on Twitter, but it's come awfully close for you. You've gone after Greg Abbott publicly a couple of times. Here he is we're having this conversation, and a few hours from now, he and Donald Trump are going to have somewhat of a party at the border today. You've gone after him unlike any other time in any other state official that I can remember, even though the battle between Austin and the state of Texas, the legislature, has gone on for some time. What's the issue there? What prompted you to go after him a couple of times and maybe even do it now?
Well, I try really not hard, as best I can, not to engage with the governor and just a back and forth kind of a thing. I don't think that it really benefits anybody. Usually, when I'm going after the governor or responding to a tweet he's made, I'm trying to fix a fact. I'm trying to fix the data or the underlying truth, so that people that get that information actually can make a reasoned decision for whatever they want to decide, but based on real facts. And in the political debate that we're having right now in the country, and certainly here in the state, it's just getting harder and harder to discern what's actually true. I'm reminded of the old phrase, you're entitled to your own opinion, but not your own facts. I mean, certainly there can be disagreement and valid disagreements on what we should or shouldn't do at any point in time, but I think it's really important to true up the
what did he, in those specific cases when you tweeted out, what exactly did he say that you had such a problem with? Or do you have a problem with to this day?
Well, the most recent tweet that the governor had that I responded to here just a day or two ago, he was talking about the police budgeting issue, and sent out a tweet that was suggesting that the city of Austin was going to lose its annexation power and lose the ability to get sales tax, and a lot of things, pretty draconian penalties that would fall on a city that was defunding police. We're going to get a budget from the manager, probably the end of next week, I think. And what it's going to show is, I hope, and I would expect, it's going to show not a real significant change in any program, any work that any officer's doing, any police department program that's being funded, because we didn't change those things to start off with. So there's not a lot to change back. We moved from the budget we got from the manager last year, $20 million out of funded but unfilled police positions to increase the EMS presence on places like 6th Street and to provide shelter for battered women. About $20 million. Yet I keep hearing in tweets from the governor and from others that we defunded the police by, like $150 million, or a third of the budget. That never happened. And on the day we took the action, when there was the first discussions or suggestions of that, on that day or the next day, I think on that day, I sent out a message that said, hey, we did some pretty significant stuff here, but one thing we did not do is to fund the police by $150 million. So I just try to correct
But
that.
then you make some comments that about the border. Wasn't that your pushback?
Well, I have pushed back, on actions on the border, because I think that the whole issue of immigration, I think, has been used by this administration and President Trump as kind of an organizing tool for the Republican Party. And I think that it served to seek to demonize immigrants. And I think that it has a divisive impact. I think it makes our community less safe. I think the work that was done where our police department was forced to become an arm of national immigration policy rather than being able to build and maintain its independence and its relationship with communities in the city. I think those things are wrong. So when we're taking ARPA money and potentially spending it to build the wall on the border, I think that's wrong.
You think that border wall ever happens?
I don't think so. I mean, it's so expensive to do. The governor has raised a lot of money and announced the money he'd raised to do it. And as I pointed out in the response, it enables us it enables what, 0.02 miles to be built or something like that.
Right. Yeah. The thing but it's sticking. And that is the word defund. It seems to be sticking and it has stuck. And I don't know if you within the Democratic Party or mayors around the country or who it is that threw the term out there, but it is sticking. So are you screaming back, waving your arms saying it's not defund, it's shift? Is that really, I mean, if we're going to discuss semantics here, and that's what the Twitter fight is about, are you saying, whoa, the defund is not the right word, shift is the better word? Is that correct?
Well,
because something happened with the budget. I mean, you just discussed it yourself. So the term defund keeps being thrown at you and other mayors. Right. What is the better word to use?
We did a relatively small reallocation of public safety spending. I mean, the fact is that we did reallocate some of the dollars, right? We did take dollars out of unfilled police positions and add another 50 members to our EMS units. We made that shift. But quite frankly, that shift is pretty popular in our community. You go up to people and say, do you support us increasing by 50 the number of EMS people? That's pretty popular. You go up to people and say, hey, how do you feel about defunding the police? Pretty unpopular. It's unpopular.
Well, as you know, the police department or the police union at least has pushed back and said, we're losing officers because of, you said allocation, you said shifting, they say defund. I mean, their argument's the other side of that, isn't it?
Well, I mean, but if we talk about what's actually happening as opposed to the words that describe it, then we can have a really meaningful conversation and an important conversation. And we should be having that conversation. We should be talking about police levels as they exist in the city right now. And we should be comparing the impact of council action in taking money from unfilled spots and moving it to EMS on our present force numbers as compared to attrition rates in the police department. Again, something that we're seeing happening around the country and something that we should do something about. But if you have a conversation about that, that's going to lead you into conversations about how do we do retention policies that are better? How do we improve conditions for officers? Or how do we bring back officers that are
right? So if you tell, Mayor, if you tell the taxpayer,
we get lost in a conversation about defund or reallocate, and I don't know what that means.
Yeah. John McClellan is the co-founder and creator of ATX Hot Sauce, now in all 50 states and several retail outlets as well. So what we're going to do today is we're going to let this social media rock star chef walk us through 4 different sauces, and then I'll taste and we'll tell everyone why they should buy. You can give the science behind these, and then I'll make the simple recommendation. Go to atxhotsauce.com. All right,
I don't think anybody's heard the website.
Yeah, I know.
About you, Jeff, but it is atxhotsauce.com.
I'll say it 345 times, atxhotsauce.com. So let's do it.
I brought 4 flavors here, and we're going to test your palate today. Okay. And I only brought 4 because I didn't think you could handle 5 or 6.
Yes,
probably a smart move. Yeah. And so the first one we're going to try here is called Beet Heat. And just like the name implies, it has beets in it. It's made with red Fresno peppers. Red Fresnos are red peppers that are they're hotter than a jalapeno and a little bit less than a serrano. So not super hot here, just a lot of really good flavor. So we're going to start with this one, and then we're going to move up the chain.
Okay. I've had the Beet Heat, but okay.
Yeah, we're going to try it though.
It goes well with a cab. All right, Jeff's savoring beet.
I'll
heat.
even do it with you, so that should be all right. Now remember, it is hot sauce.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It's hot sauce. Trust me, man.
Wait,
It's hot sauce.
is that one hot to you?
No. A little.
Yeah. The great thing with the fermentation process is you get a bunch of the flavor right up front.
Yeah.
And then the heat comes, but then it dissipates pretty quickly, especially with the red Fresnos. You know, this is not a very spicy one, but it is a very tasty one. Goes on great on sandwiches.
Beet heat.
Beet heat. B-E-E-T. Heat.
All right. Go to atxhotsauce.com.
That's right.
If you tell the taxpayer, listen, here's the best bang for your buck in terms of money you're spending on police or shifting or defunding, whatever the term is, what's the best major cities around this country dealing with an uptick in crime? What do you tell the taxpayer is their best bang for the buck?
I think people are trying to find that right now. I mean, we're seeing in Houston, for example, just down the road, they pretty significantly increased police funding and police presence, and their number of murders, increased number of murders, far exceeds what we're looking at here in Austin. Rise in crime. You see that happening all across the country, including in cities that were increasing force and adding more money into police forces. So I don't think anybody really knows the answer of what to be doing in the face of the uptick in crime that we're seeing. We do know that if you look at over an extended period of time, over a 10-year period of time, over a 20-year period of time, crime has gone down substantially over that period of time. We know that in our community, there are large parts of our community that don't feel safe in our community the same way that you do or I do. And we need to address those kinds of issues. But I don't think anybody's identified the magic bullet. And that's more than anything else. What the city council did a year ago was say, we actually have to have a serious conversation about the question that you just asked. I mean, what might that be? What would that look like? One of the things that we said that came out of that, but it was already an ongoing conversation for a couple of years, was to take the forensic lab and make it more independent leadership. We were having a backlog on processing rape kits. If you make it independent, the district attorney said it would have more credibility in court when we're trying to convict people. That was a move that was made. But I think that the biggest thing that the city council did a year ago was to initiate conversations about how we could do what we're doing better, and looking at public safety, not just as police, but why are we expecting police to be our mental health first responders to the degree that we are? There are a lot of people in this community that support us trying to find a different model for that. Right now, when you call 911, we're one of the first cities in the country where they ask, do you need police, fire, EMS, or do you need a mental health responder? I mean, that thing by itself, I think, will help improve public safety.
Let's talk about the homeless issue and the camping ban vote. I don't know if you would say that you and other mayors in Austin and mayors after you would say, your legacy will be defined by homelessness. I don't know if it's fair to say that. Maybe you would own that. But the camping ban was voted in overwhelmingly. So where along the way in allowing people to sleep along the hike and bike trailer under bridges or wherever it was, I'm not saying you ever suggested it was the best thing, but it was voted down overwhelmingly. Why did you ever think that was a good idea or the best solution? And now after the vote, what's your answer?
Homelessness is a pretty hard challenge, and was a hard challenge when I got elected, ran for the office 7 years ago. Conversations began about the arch and what was happening outside the arch. But 2 or 3 years after that into my term, I'm starting to go to more and more homeowners association meetings where they don't want to talk about zoning. They don't want to talk about flooding. They want to talk about the encampment that is somewhere near them. I was at a neighborhood association meeting in Onion Creek, and they were wanting me to fix the homeless encampment that was at the Slaughter Lane overpass, I-35.
Right.
Angriest homeowner association meeting I have ever been to. And I've been to West Austin talking about the land development code. This was the angriest one I have ever been to. And at the end of the meeting, some guy came to me and said, hey, if you don't, you're mayor, fix this. And if you don't fix this, I have a gun and I'm going to fix this. You know, I don't know that he meant that, but it was an indication of the level of what was being felt. And I had no answer to that. You know, we could fence off the underpass at Slaughter Lane at I-35, and the people don't disappear. They just go somewhere else. And wherever they go, they're going to be in a wrong place. Whatever we were doing was not working. Everything we were doing was not working. And I was looking at our housing prices escalating. And I know from all the studies that the single most significant factor correlating to exploding homelessness challenges is increase in housing prices. So we're a prime candidate for it. I'm looking at LA and Seattle and Portland and San Francisco, and I'm beginning to get scared 4 years ago, 5 years ago, that is us in 10 years because we're exactly on the path that they were on. And you know, you can have cars that go past an overpass 1,000 times. You can have, you know, a half dozen people sleeping in the crevices in that overpass, and you never see them. You drive by, you never see them. And then one day a good Samaritan shows up and gives all 6 of them a tent. And the next day when you drive by, there's 6 tents there, and you feel like the world has changed. But it's the same number of people, and they're just more visible. The mistake that we made 2 years ago as a council was not in saying, hey, let's keep our, you know, ticket people, jail people if they're creating a public safety risk or a public health hazard. But all they're doing is just experiencing homelessness. If that's it, they're not doing those other things, we're not going to put that person in jail. I don't think it was wrong for us to decriminalize, but we should have done a better job of saying where people can go and not go. And we asked for it at the time when we did that action. And for whatever reason, we didn't have the follow through to actually.
But
do that.
I guess, long story short, you're not surprised at the public's reaction in the vote. It sounds like you're saying you're not surprised, and it doesn't even sound like you're saying you completely disagree. But are you saying, okay, the vote is in, we're still at square one?
We're not at square one, though. And that's
what square are we on then?
Well, I think we're actually closer now than we have ever been.
To what?
Being able to meet this challenge. And that's because I think of the program that's come out, the proposal that's come out, the summit proposal that's come out now from the Chamber of Commerce and the DAA, arm in arm with ECHO, which is our umbrella organization, HUD, empowered organization in the city, but also the left-leaning homeless advocates. For the very first time, we have people agreed on exactly what the solution is. We've never had that kind of agreement before, and we have, I think, for the first time, the ability to access the resources that are necessary to set up the system that would get us to the same equilibrium we got with veterans, the same progress we've made with youth. We know what works in homelessness. We just have never had the community resolve to actually fund it and do the work. And
right. What you're describing, what does that look like, and when does it take form?
Well, it began in last November when the conversations started happening between people that have been arguing with each other for years about what to do. And everybody's focused on the one sliver of the system that's necessary. In order for us to meet this challenge, you need the system. You need to have emergency, rapid response for housing, but you have to be able to pull people through that into permanent supportive housing. But you can't have any of those things without the wraparound services. You need the mental health intervention. And we have no mental health intervention in this city outside of the jails, really. Which cities just don't have that anymore with the federal government, the state government abdicating that role. But also substance use intervention and services and job training. If you pull all those things together, the physical places and the services, we're 95% successful in getting people off the street and keeping them off the street. Caritas in our city, 95% successful. Community First, Alan Graham, 95% successful. Walter Moreau, 95% successful. But I was unable in my first 4 years in going to the community and saying, let's scale this. I mean, this is the one social challenge that we actually know what works. Let's scale this. And I couldn't do it. The community was not at a place where it had the resolve to actually do what it takes to scale this. Because once you set that system up, once you have all those pieces in place, then it becomes relatively inexpensive because you're pulling people into the system at the same rate they're exiting that system. So the city council here took an action. We said we're going to take, this once in a generation allocation of resources associated with the rescue plan dollars. The city council said, let's put over half of those dollars toward this challenge, but it's a community match, right? There's another $200 million we need to raise.
So total, what kind of money are you talking about? I mean, in total?
Well, over a 3-year span to set up the system, because you have to build it. We were doing none of that over the last 10 or 15 years. The number of permanent supportive housing units we built, close to zero, not very many at all, just a few. And we didn't build out the services. We have great organizations, Alan Graham Community First, but he only is with 220 people. He should have hundreds of people that he's helping. So when you look back, are you saying to people, listen, you may not see it now, a difference in homelessness, but 3 years from now, 5 years, I mean, what kind of time frame, when you're able to, you come back on this show 3 to 5 years from now, and you say, see, I told you so, there is a difference. Is that what you're making the claim today? The summit plan, the goal that was set, that this dollars would enable us to do, would enable us to house an additional 3,000 people over the next 3 years, to house them and provide them the services to keep them, to house them and to keep them off the streets, either to return them back into life as we are all living it, or to at least put them in a place where they're sustained. And the reason I think, Jeff, I think that can work is that the total number of people that we have on any given night in our streets right now experiencing homelessness, last point in time count, like 2,800. It is a scale of a challenge that we can solve in this city as compared to a city like LA. LA has like 50,000 people on any given night. Seattle, smaller city than we are, 4 to 6 times as many people experiencing homelessness as we have. If we don't fix this while the scale is small, it's going to continue to build and explode. And then we'll be like those cities where the scale is so big. The line item in the LA budget this year, just to sustain people, not to move them out of homelessness, just to carry them from the beginning of their fiscal year to the end of their fiscal year, $1 billion in the city of Los Angeles budget.
So the 2,800 number that you, again, people are, you're talking about the process, you're talking about the system. I respect that. But the average taxpayer is saying, I need to see a difference. All I know, Mayor, is just what I see. All I know is what's at my doorstep. All I know is what's under that bridge. And all I know is what's on that hike and bike trail. And it is uncomfortable. It is, you know this. I mean, it's uncomfortable and it is ugly. It hurts to see. So you're saying, if people hear you today, you're saying, hey, there's 2,800 today. In 3 years, that number is going to be 2,000. Then it's going to be 1,500. Then you, the public, are going to see a real difference over what time frame?
Well, I immediately, you can look at a before and after picture right now of what it looked like at the Terrazas Library just east of I-35. And there were tons of people there in tents. You go there today, there's not a one. And the city over time has to be moving from these encampments to another encampment and getting these people into housing and get them set on their life. Because of Prop B, you're going to see a lot of these encampments disappear a lot sooner than that. And I think it's real important that at the very least we protect the women from having to go back to what they were doing 2 years ago, because that's a pretty horrific life for them. The stories that you hear about women being forced back to the women's in the streets, pretty horrific. So at the very least, in response to Prop B, when we started forcing the ordinances again, we need to protect them.
You mentioned affordability. for 20 years, anyone that's been here for 20 years, which is not many of us, granted, but those of us that have been here a long time have heard affordability from one mayor, the next one, the next one, the next one. Steve Adler says affordability. The next mayor is going to talk about affordability. Would you own that it's not affordable and maybe that you can't do anything about it?
I would own that, yeah, I mean, it's not affordable in the city. The prices are going up. They continue to go up. It's getting harder and harder to live here. I won't accept that there's not anything you can do about it, because there are things you can do about it. You can create housing that is more affordable, so you can slow down the progress that you see by creating greater supply of different kinds of housing types. You can increase the subsidies that you're putting into projects as people build projects to create units that can only be sold at a reduced price.
Is that really happen? I mean, that sounds like a nice thing. I mean, all affordability discussions sound like nothing but a bunch of big theory. Is that theory? Okay, so
over the last 4 to 6 years,
but it's still not very affordable. You would admit that, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, yes, but do we have a lot more permanently affordable units in the city today than we had 6 years ago? The answer to that is yes, a lot more, because of a lot of the things that we've done here locally. So, have we solved the problem? No. I mean, we have so many people moving to this city, but it would be worse if we hadn't done the things that we did. And the fact that we can't solve it, it just is not reason enough to roll over and say, I'm not going to do anything.
But at some level, you have to. You can't fix supply and demand.
You can't. Well, you can. You can't change the fact that there's a relationship between supply and demand. And when we don't have supply, demand's going to send up the price. But we can do things to increase supply. We were 7 days away from getting an approval to a land development code adoption that would have significantly increased supply of housing in the city. The court stopped us on that, and now we need to come back, and I hope we do within the next couple months here with something that will be unanimously approved by the city council, at least on the elements we can agree on. We have to increase supply in the city, but we're an attractive place, and people are moving here, and I don't know how to get people to stop moving here other than to make this an unattractive place for people to come. And I don't want that one to be my platform. Vote for me. I'll make Austin.
Yeah. I mean, you've heard this before. Old Austin, particularly people that have been priced out, which is not, those are true stories and a very real thing. So they're going to look up at the optics. And here is Mayor of Austin, maybe the governor of Texas, arm in arm with fill in the blank, Facebook, Google, Tesla. Boy, you guys sure welcoming them, and you're providing tax breaks for them. And then on the other hand, you tell me you want to make life more affordable, but yet you're the one throwing the door open at the ribbon cutting ceremony saying, great, more high paying jobs, more corporations, more big money. Your answer back to someone with that criticism is what?
Well, first, I'd say people need to understand that in my 6 years, I think we've offered a tax break here in the city once over that 6-year period of time. And it was for Merck downtown, and they ultimately didn't end up taking it. So we don't have a lot of those programs. But where those programs do happen, I mean, the county did one for Tesla.
Right.
And I support that. And if that had happened in the city, I would have supported that for the city to get involved. We didn't because it wasn't. But I think that to the degree that we are really focusing on clean manufacturing that are providing middle skill jobs, I think we start doing something that helps us with affordability in the city.
But isn't that counterintuitive, though? I mean, these are not manufacturing jobs coming to Austin. These are high-end, white-collar jobs. And these are people that are, somebody would argue they're pricing out an Austinite that may have been on the Southeast side or something like that.
No question, but those jobs that are coming in, I'm just saying that they're not coming in with government support. I mean, when a company wants to come in and move to Austin and is bringing a $150,000 a year paying job, they're creating a job here that if someone comes with that job is now going to be adding to the pressure of increasing prices of housing. I mean, that's the situation we're dealing with. It's just that it's not the government that's subsidizing that $150,000 a year job. That job is coming. And we can't stop that job from coming. They have a right in this country to bring that job. And again, this is an attractive place for people to be. But I think we need to be going back to those people, those companies that are coming into our city with those high-paying jobs, and say, you also have a responsibility as part of this community. You need to contribute to the summit plan I was talking about a second ago to build out the system for homelessness in our community. And we're going to be approaching those companies and saying there's a certain civic responsibility that you have. You need to give back to the community in these kinds of ways. But the jobs that I am open to discussing the government getting involved in co-investing with are jobs that are bringing in middle skill jobs for people that we can uptrade here at ACC and at Capital, Idea, and those kinds of things.
Probably a week doesn't go by when I say to some Austinites, which I don't even know what the definition is anymore, how long you've been here. And I say, you don't really remember when things were really weird. You don't really understand how crazy things used to be. It used to be must-watch TV on those Thursday council meetings. I remember people calling my show from those council meetings when it was really weird. I remember Jennifer Gale, who was running for mayor. I think running for mayor countless times, right? And I think her platform was giving vitamins to all citizens. I go, that's when things were weird. Those Thursday council meetings, when they had the public forum. What's the weirdest thing that has happened on a Thursday since you've been mayor? Arguably not your fault, but a more boring time in Austin, Texas. What's the most bizarre? And by the way, how do you not say, oh my gosh, please shut up? How do you not say that? Just, I can't take it anymore.
Sometimes you think that,
I know you have to. So what's the weirdest, most bizarre, outrageous thing that has been presented on a Thursday?
It's not going to help very much if I say that.
Yeah, well.
But, we have people that come in and sing us songs.
Yeah.
And they're entitled under the First Amendment for their 3 minutes to make their best argument. And if they choose to sing us a song, they have a constitutional right to do that. But yes, what we have done though is, those meetings pretty regularly used to go to midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And I'm proud that we, kind of restructured things a little bit. So that isn't happening. Real rare that anything like that would happen. Nothing good happens after midnight. My, father used to tell me all the time, like he was right.
Would you ever say, what are you singing about? What's this about?
Usually I'm just ready to get to the next person.
Are you on your phone? Honestly, are you on your phone?
Sometimes the emergency message may come across my screen.
Yeah. Okay. Nothing, but you wouldn't own anything that you would admit to this day. Wow, that even by our standards, that one's out there.
I was accused of sexually assaulting somebody once.
At the council meeting?
That one took me back.
Yeah. Was it your accuser that was up there talking?
Yeah, I had opened the door for someone to pass through at a Camp Metro meeting who was carrying a lot of things. And apparently I patted him on the back as he was thanking me for opening the door, and I was opening the door. But and then people who sing songs, you've had people who've gone through kind of a theatrical presentation of what they want to do with bringing in props for us to see. You got to love democracy, and democracy means that lots of people show up to present ideas in lots of different ways. And I don't usually engage in that because there's a long line of people, and I'm ready to get to the next one.
All right. Mayor, thanks for doing this. Good talking to you again.
Yeah, it was good to be with you. Thanks.
Thank you.